صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله. صلى الله وسلم عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة، ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم، وأمنا من لجأ والتجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيمة. قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم: وقوله الحق وهو أصدق الصادقين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ما محمد إلا رسول قد خلت من قبله الرسل أفإن مات أو قتلا انقلبتم على أعقابكم ومن ينقلب على عقبيه لن يضر الله شيئا وسيجزي الله الشاكرين. Swear in your gathering with a loud remembrance upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. As a gift to the soul of Sayyidi wa Mawlai Al-Imam Ali ibn al-Hussain Zain al-Abideen, recite the second salawat. As a gift to the soul of Sayyidi wa Mawlai Abi Abdullah al-Hussain, recite the third salawat with the loudest of your voices. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. At many times, the event of Ashura, which took place in the year 680, 61 years after the migration of Rasulullah from Mecca to Medina, on the 10th of Muharram in the city of Karbala. This event is referred to as a result of the appointment of Yazid ibn Muawiyah as the Khalifa of the Muslims. And as Yazid became the Khalifa, he asked his governor in Medina to seek an allegiance for him from Imam Abu Abdullah al-Hussain. And of course, the result was that Imam Hussain refused to give this allegiance to Yazid. And he embarked on this journey, this great journey of sacrifice. And he left Medina to Mecca and Mecca to Karbala. Many people see the event of Ashura and the sacrifice of Imam Hussain as the result of the fact that Yazid became the Khalifa of the Muslims. And Imam Hussain, in his very famous lines, in his very famous sermon, discusses this issue, and he says, إني لم أخرج أشرا ولا بطرا ولا مفسدا بل خرجت لإصلاح أمة جدي رسول الله لكي آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر وأسير على سيرة جدي وأبي وهذا يزيد رجل فاسق فاجر شارب للخمر مبيح للنفس المحترمة وقد ركزني بين اثنتين بين السلة والذلة وهيهات من الذلة. He says that I do not embark on this journey but for the following reason. And Imam Hussain is very particular in choosing his words and how he states his mission statement, his ultimate mission statement. He says, I do not embark on this journey but for the following reasons. Meaning, years down the line, people can't come and say, well, Imam Hussain stated the reasons why he was leaving to Karbala, but we also are on the opinion that those also could have been other reasons why Imam Hussain went to Karbala. And they would state their own theories and their own opinions alongside the reasons that Imam Hussain stated. But Imam Hussain was very particular. He says, I do not leave but for the following reasons. Mean there is no other reason for me to embark on this journey. أني لم أخرج أشرا ولا بطرا, for the sake of popularity, for the sake of fame, for the sake of khilafah. إني لم أخرج أشرا ولا بطرا ولا مفسدا بل خرجت لإصلاح أمة جدي رسول الله. But I have embarked on this journey to perfect the ummah, to purify the ummah of my grandfather Rasulullah. Until he continues to say, and this Yazid, this man, is a drunken man who disrespects the human dignity. This was the main reason why Imam Hussain had an issue with Yazid. Because Yazid would take the believers who rejected to give him the bay'ah, he would strip them off their clothes, he would cut off their right hand and left foot, and he would throw them in the street so that they would become a lesson for others. So Imam Hussain says, وَهَذَا يَزِيدْ رَجُلٌ شَارِبٌ لِلْخَمْرِ مُبِيحٌ لِلنَّفْسِ الْمُحْتَرَمَةِ. And he's given me two options. وَقَدْ رَكَزَنِي بَيْنَ اثْنَتَيْنِ بَيْنَ السِّلَّةِ وَالذِّلَّةِ. Death or humiliation. وَهِهَاتْ مِنَّ الذِّلَّةِ. And Hussain will never humiliate himself for Yazid. However, when we examine the event of Ashura, we should not examine the event of Ashura from the beginning of the Khilafah of Yazid. Or we should not examine the day of Ashura from the day that Imam Hussain left Medina to Mecca and to Karbala. And indeed, we should not examine the event of Ashura from the morning of the 10th of Muharram until the eve of Muharram, until the night of the 10th of Muharram. But the event of Ashura and the sacrifice of Imam Hussain was well in the making for 48 years. And this is what I'd like to discuss tonight. And both parties knew, the side of Haqq knew of the sacrifice of Hussain and was completely aware of what will happen to Hussain, and the side of Batil was constantly planning for at least 48 years and knew that the result will be the murder of Hussain. the side of haqq. Salama narrates in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim that one day Hussein was 3 years old and he entered the chamber of Salama. And Salama tried to stop him. She said to him, "Your grandfather is resting." Rasulullah said, Salama, allow him into the bedroom. He came. Salama said, Rasulullah began to play with him. Rasulullah began to kiss him. Rasulullah began to allow him to ride his back. She said, "I left, I came back, and I saw Rasulullah in tears. His beard was full of tears. I said to him, Ya Rasulullah, what is it that makes you cry? Why is it that you're full of tears?" He said, Salama, Jibreel just came and he informed me that my grandson Hussein, my beloved Hussein, will be murdered by some of my own ummah. And he gave me some of the soil of Karbala. And he showed me the event of Ashura. Salama, take this soil and know when the soil turns into blood that Hussein has become a martyr. So the side of haqq knew. Rasulullah informed all his companions. Abu Hurairah in Sahih Muslim narrates that he saw Rasulullah carrying Imam Hussain. And he said to him, "O Abu Hurairah, do you know who this man is?" When Imam Hussain was an infant. So he said to him, "Yes, he's the son of Ali." He said, "He is Hussain. Husaynun minni wa ana min Hussain. Ahabba Allah man ahabba Husayna." He said to him, he is not just the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib, but he is from me and I am from him. Allah loves those who love Hussein. So Rasulullah introduced the role of Imam Hussein, spoke of the significance of Imam Hussein. Historical accounts tell us that the birth of Imam Hussein, the miraculous birth of Imam Hussein, also told the future of Imam Hussein. It spoke of the event of Ashura and beyond the event of Ashura. Traditional accounts tell us that Fatima Zahra, while she was pregnant with Imam Hussein, while Imam Hussein was in her womb, while her pregnancy, Imam Hussein would speak to his mother Fatima. And he would discuss his affairs with his mother Fatima Zahra. And this is no surprise to anyone. I tell you why this is no surprise to anyone. Because today the entire world witnesses the miracle of Imam Hussein, the everlasting miracle of Imam Hussein. This year, 25 million people are expected to be in Karbala for Arba'een. Tell me, when has this happened? In the history of which religion? In the account of which culture? According to which rituals 25 million people go and visit a shrine of a man who was murdered 1,000 years ago? But this is the miracle of Hussein for the entire world to witness. Some people would walk 850 kilometers from Basra, from Samarra. This year there are groups from outside the country of Iraq who will walk from their own countries, from their own neighboring countries, who will walk from Iran and Kuwait all the way to Karbala. This is the miracle of Hussein. And Imam Hussein would speak to his mother. He would say to his mother in a historical account, "Ana al-gharib." I am the gharib. His mother would cry. She would shed tears for him. Rasulullah would come, he would say, "Ya Fatima, why is it that you're crying?" She said, "This child in my womb tells me, Ana al-gharib." Ya Rasulullah, will he be gharib? Will he be alone? And Rasulullah would say, "Ya Fatima, indeed he is the gharib." The next day, Fatima would cry until she would faint. Rasulullah would come, "Fatima, what is it that makes you cry?" She said, "Ya Rasulullah," he says, "Ana al-mazloom." I am the mazloom. Will he be the madloom? Yes, indeed, Ya Fatima, he will be the madloom. The third day, Ana al-Shaheed, I am the martyr. And Rasulullah spoke of this account. Fatima to Zahra spoke of this account. Not only the day of Ashura, but Fatima to Zahra asks Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, who will be there for him? Will his brother Hassan? Will his father Amir al-Mu'mineen? Will I be there? Will you be there? No, no one will be there. Then Fatima will say, Ya Rasulullah, then who will cry for my son Hussein? Who will mourn my son Hussein? And Rasulullah from that day says, Ya Fatima, sayatun mu'minun, jilan ba'da jil. Ya Fatima, believers, mu'mineen will come generation after next. ينصبون المآتم لولدك الحسين. And they will do the ma'atim and they will shed tears and they will cry for your son Hussein. So Rasulullah not only informed us of the event of Ashura, but the aftermath of Ashura. As Sayyida Zainab, when she was taken to the palace of Ibn Ziyad, and Ibn Ziyad says to her, did you see what Allah did with your brother and with your family? What did she say? She said a very powerful statement. She said, Yabna Ziyad, do whatever you wish. Ujhud jahdak. Struggle. Try to destroy our name. Try to defame us. Try to bury us. فَوَاللَّهِ لَا تَمْحُوا ذِكْرَنَا. You will never be able to remove our name, remove our goal, remove our principles, remove us from existence. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will strengthen the message of Hussein and the call of Hussein. So Sayyida Zainab spoke of the aftermath when Ahl al-Bayt physically had seen a crushing defeat. When the head of Imam Hussein was on top of a spear, Sayyida Zainab says that you would not be able to bury our name. Allah will choose to give rise to the name of my brother. She spoke of the future. The same way the side of Batil was also aware of what they were doing, and they were constantly planning. And they also saw the future that one day Hussein will also be murdered. And this is an extremely important point that needs to be examined. For many of us, we come to the Majlis of Imam Hussein 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 60 years. And when we are asked, what was the result? What was the reason? What was the purpose behind Ashura? We say it was because Yazid became the Khalifa and Imam Hussein didn't want to give bay'ah to Khalifa, to Yazid as the Khalifa. No. That is why I have chosen to examine this topic with the following 7 historical accounts. Those 7 historical accounts that led to the martyrdom of Moulana wa Sayyiduna Abu Abdullah al-Hussein salawatullahi alayhi. The first is the ayah that I began my lecture with. Muhammad, according to this ayah, is a Rasul, is a messenger. ما محمد إلا رسول قد خلت من قبله الرسل. There were messengers before him. أفإن مات, if he were to die, أو قتل, or to be killed, انقلبتم على أعقابكم, you would return on your heels, you would return to Jahiliyyah, you would go back to the pre-Islamic era. أفإن مات أو قتل انقلبتم على أعقابكم. Then Allah makes a very powerful remark. Allah says, وَمَنْ يَنْقَلِبُ عَلَىٰ عَقِبَيْهِ فَلَنْ يَضُرَّ اللَّهَ شَيْئًا. And whoever falls on his heels, meaning he leaves Islam, he returns to Jahiliyyah, فَلَنْ يَضُرَّ اللَّهَ شَيْئًا. He's not harming Allah. Allah and His religion and His faith will not be hurt. Allah doesn't need the numbers. وَسَيَجْزِيَ اللَّهُ الشَّاكِرِينَ. And Allah will reward the shakirin, those who are thankful for the message. And how are they thankful? By sacrificing for the sake of the message. This is a God-given promise. Why was this verse sent down? Why was this verse revealed? This verse was revealed in the Battle of Uhud, 3 years after the migration of Rasulullah from Mecca to Medina. Many of you who have gone to Medina, you have gone to Uhud to visit Sayyid al-Shuhada Hamza, the uncle of Rasulullah, who was martyred in the Battle of Uhud. It was a deadly battle. It was an extremely difficult battle, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam lost many of his brave companions, many of his loyal companions, including his uncle Hamza. And Rasulullah has stated, historical accounts tell us, in that battle was suffering from many wounds, head to toe. He was bleeding. Some, who their names are also in history, recorded in history, began to say, قَدْ مَاتَ Muhammad. Muhammad has been killed. Muhammad has been killed in Badr. And some of the Muslims immediately when they heard this, they dropped their weapons and they surrendered. Some of them not only dropped their weapons, they joined the opposite side. Immediately. Immediate retreat. Immediate return to the pre-Islamic era of Jahiliyyah. And some of them, they left the battle. For 3 days they left. They didn't come back. Allah revealed this ayah in the battle, that Rasulullah is a man just like any other prophets. If he were to die, his legacy has to remain. If he were to die, it doesn't mean that you leave the faith, you leave the religion, you return to Jahiliyyah. You disregard his legacy and his message. Rasulullah came with the message of oneness, Tawheed. He came forth with a religion, not rituals and practices. And if he were to die or to be killed, you should not return to the era of Jahiliyyah. This is 3 years before, this is 3 years after the migration of Rasulullah from Mecca to Medina. After this event, go and look at the historical accounts of Bukhari, Tabari, Ibn Kathir. They state that Rasulullah came, he stood on the mimbar, and he held a needle. A needle. He said, "Do you see this needle?" They said, "Yes." He said, "Do you see the small hole in the needle? Well, they put the thread. Small, tiny, tiny, tiny hole. He said, "Some of my companions sitting here," according to Bukhari, "some of my companions sitting here will not enter paradise. If a camel can go through this needle, then those companions will enter paradise. If a camel can go through this needle, then those companions will enter paradise." He spoke clearly, Rasulullah. And Rasulullah kept struggling with this set of companions, with this group of companions. And his struggle was evident. It was clear. In the Battle of Tabuk, 14 of his companions tried to assassinate him. His own companions. Go and read the historical accounts of the Battle of Tabuk. And how 14 of the Sahaba tried to assassinate Rasulullah. And Allah gave their names to Rasulullah. And Rasulullah continued the struggle with them until the famous event of Raziyatul Khamis, the tragedy of the Thursday. And the tragedy of the Thursday is recorded by Imam Bukhari in Sahih Bukhari in the section of illnesses. Go and look up tonight in any Muslim book, in any book of hadith, in any book of history, the account of the raziyah of Khamis, the tragedy of the Thursday. What is the story of the tragedy of the Thursday? Ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Abbas, the famous companion, transmitter of hadith. That's according to all Muslims, according to Bukhari and Muslim and Tirmidhi and Nasa'i. And all the ulama as a trustworthy submitter of hadith, transmitter of hadith, narrator of hadith, states that it was Thursday, the Thursday before the demise of Rasulullah. And we were gathered in the chamber of Rasulullah, and the room of Rasulullah, and the house of Rasulullah, and his residence. And Rasulullah was ill. He would sometimes faint because of his high fever. He said we were sitting next to him. When he woke, he said, "Give me a paper and pen for me to write for you something. If you were to implement, you would never go astray. آتوني بقلم وقرطاس لكي أكتب لكم ما إن تمسكتم به لن تضلوا بعدي أبدا." Imagine this great statement. Give me a paper and pen. Ibn Abbas says present there was Umar ibn al-Khattab, and he said that إِنَّ الرَّجُلَ لَيَهْجُرُ. Rasulullah has a high fever, he is ill, and he is hallucinating. He doesn't know what he's saying. He doesn't know Rasulullah, he's lost his mind. Ibn Abbas, I know some of you know this historical account, but listen to what Bukhari says. Look at the tragedy. He says, then he said, فَقَدْ اشْتَدَّ الْمَرَضُ بِهِ. Rasulullah is very ill. His illness has taken over him. حَسْبُنَا كِتَابَ اللَّهِ. We only have the book of Allah, we don't need anything else. Then Ibn Abbas said the people around Rasulullah were in two groups. بَعْضٌ يَقُولُ مَقُولَةَ عُمَرٍ. Some of them continued to defend Umar, saying, yes, we agree. Let's not give a paper and pen to the Prophet. Let's not allow him to write. وَبَعْضٌ يَقُولُ مَقُولَةُ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. And some of them say, no. Indeed, we have to give Rasulullah the paper and pen. And they began to argue until Rasulullah says, تَنَحُّوا عَنِّي. Leave me. And Rasulullah did not see them until his demise. This is the tragedy of the Thursday, Raziyatul Khamis, recorded all over history. But what is tragic is not the tragedy of Khamis. This is not the great tragedy. The great tragedy is when you examine Tabari and you examine Tarikh al-Kabir for Bukhari. At the time of the demise of the first Khalifa Abu Bakr, when the first Khalifa Abu Bakr was also ill, he also had a fever, Umar, the same books, the same scholars state, he came in, وَكَانَ بِيَدِهِ صَوْتٌ. He came in while Abu Bakr was in his last moments, وَكَانَ بِيَدِهِ خَيْزَرَانًا. And he was holding a whip, a crop. وَكَانَ يَضْرِبُ النَّاسِ. And he would hit the people and he would say to them, اسمعوا اسمعوا فَأَنَّ الرَّجُلَ يُرِيدُ الْوَصِيَّةِ. Listen. And he would whip them. Listen. And he would whip them. The man wants to give his wasiyah. Allahu Akbar. The man wants to give his wasiyah, he whips them, listen. Abu Bakr had a servant, a slave by the name of Shadid. The second Khalifa Umar says, Shadid, go and take this paper and pen to Abu Bakr. With Rasulullah, we refrain him from the paper and pen. With Abu Bakr, we send him the paper and pen. فَأَنَّهُ يُرِيدُ الْوَصِيَّةِ. He wants to give his wasiyah. Shadid went, he gave the wasiyah to Abu Bakr. And Abu Bakr in one line said, my wasiyah and the khilafah after me belongs to Umar ibn al-Khattab. Shadid gave the paper to Umar, and Umar announced it to the public. This is one account of Karbala in the making, Ashura in the making, the beheading of Imam Hussain in the making. We have to be transparent. We have to be clear. We have to make sure that the entire world understands the history behind Ashura. And what was the reason, and who planted the seed, and who were the founders of the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on the 10th of Muharram. Some of the historical accounts is the collection of the Quran and the compilation of hadith. After the demise of Rasulullah, historical accounts tell us, look at the book of Ihtijaj, that Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen wa Mawla al-Muwahhideen Ali ibn Abi Talib stayed at home for 6 consecutive months, and he read and he wrote the Quran. And after 6 months he came out, and the Quran was on a cloth. He showed them the cloth. And he said to them that you are all aware that I know exactly where every ayah was revealed, for what reason it was revealed, on whom it was revealed. I know the tafsir, I know the ta'wil, I know the secrets of the Quran, and no one of you claims to have the knowledge of the Quran like I do. They said, yes, Ya Abul Hasan, we agree. He said, then this is the Quran, I have compiled the Quran. And historical accounts state that they came and they saw what was in the Quran, and they read the Quran, and they said, Ya Abul Hasan, we do not need this. Take it with you. Take it home. Even though the message while the demise of Rasulullah was Hasbuna Kitab Allah, we have the Quran, we need the Quran. But when the Quran was compiled by Amir al-Mu'mineen, that Quran was rejected. Immediately Umar ibn al-Khattab, in the time of the first Khalifa, made a council by the leadership of Zaid ibn Thabit, a 25-year-old man. Zaid ibn Thabit, with 25 other individuals who had memorized the Quran. They sat and they wrote the Quran, and they compiled the Quran, and they presented the Quran to the first Khalifa Abu Bakr. I don't want to get into the details of how the Quran was compiled, but I will tell you that in the time of the third Khalifa Uthman, some copies of the Quran were being burnt. My phone? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala. My phone is off. The second salawat. The third salawat with the loudest of your voices. The other historical account that needs to be examined is the compilation of hadith. Bukhari, Tabari, all the books of history, even non-Muslims, have transmitted this historical account. When some of the companions asked Ammar ibn Yasir of a tradition in regards to tayammum, and he quoted a hadith from Rasulullah, Umar came to him. He said, if I see you quoting hadith from Rasulullah one more time, I will jail you. I will punish you. Hasbuna kitab Allah. We only need the Quran. You do not quote hadith from Rasulullah. Quoting hadith from Rasulullah was forbidden. Go look at Sahih Bukhari. Go look at Sahih Muslim in the section of compilation of hadith. Jam'ul hadith. It's an entire section that speaks of compilation of hadith. A tradition narrated by Aisha. She said, when my father Abu Bakr became the Khalifa, he sent his ambassadors to the Muslim world, to the Arabian Peninsula. To each village, to each tribe, to each family, to each famous companion, stating, if you have any hadith from Rasulullah, give us the hadith. Send it to the Khalifa. So she said, we began to compile the hadiths of Rasulullah at home. Some were come on cloth, some on deerskin. Some would be one hadith, some would be books of hadiths. She said, until the last messenger reached the city of Medina, and he gave the last pile of hadith, the last set of hadith to my father Abu Bakr. She said, he put the hadith, and she said, we had a mountain of hadith. We compiled a mountain of hadith. She said, my father slept that night. In the Fajr of the next day, he woke up and he set fire in those hadiths and he burned them all. فَشَبَّ فِيهَا نَارًا وَأَحْرَقَهَا. Brothers, this is not a historical account that the Muslims have a disagreement on. This is not something that may or may not have happened. This is a historical account transmitted by every Muslim historian, that the hadiths of Rasulullah were burned down, every one of them. And no one can transmit hadith. It was, according to their law, it was illegal to transmit hadith until the time of the Khalifa Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz died in which year? 101 after the Hijrah. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz died in the year 101 after the Hijrah. For 100 years after the Hijrah, hadiths were not being transmitted. It was illegal. Yes, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz came and he allowed the different madhahib to transmit hadith, to narrate hadith. Before that, it was illegal. This is the initiation of the school that attributes itself to the Sunnah, of a school that attributes itself to Rasulullah. I really do not want to give my own input, and I don't want to get into more disturbing accounts. But it is enough for us to say that the hadiths and the legacy of Rasulullah was all burned down. Some of them were the Friday sermons of Rasulullah. For 10 years in Medina, Rasulullah led the Friday prayers and he gave the Friday sermon. Today, not even one of his sermons is narrated in history. There were transmitters writing his sermons, recording his sermons, but yet it was destroyed and annihilated by the founding fathers of the school of the Sunnah. Another historical account which needs to be examined thoroughly is the beginning of the Khilafah of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. And Karbala is still in the making. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. When the third Khalifa Uthman came into power, first of all, how did Uthman come into power? Uthman came into power according to a council of individuals who the second Khalifa had appointed. And this needs a whole lecture by itself, examining every one of their personalities, their roles and agenda. They came to Amir al-Mu'mineen, they said, Ya Ali, give us your hand, we're going to give you the bay'ah after Umar. Ala kitabillah wa sunnati rasulih wa sirat al-shaykhain. we're going to give you the allegiance according to the book of Allah, and according to the sunnah of Rasulullah, and according to the path of the Shaykhain, meaning Umar and Abu Bakr. Amir al-Mu'mineen said, Bay'uni, give me the allegiance, ala kitabillah, according to the Quran, and the sunnah of Rasulullah, wa amma siratul shaykhaini fala. But the tradition of the Shaykhain, the previous Shaykhain, no, bal ijtihadu ra'yi, my own opinion. And there is no doubt that his opinion was superior than the rest of the companions, and his knowledge was superior than the rest of the companions. They said, no, we're not going to accept those terms. And they gave the allegiance to Uthman ibn Affan. Uthman ibn Affan, when he came into power, one of the very small, tiny pictures that I can draw for you now is that he appointed his stepbrother, Walid, as the governor of Kufa. The first day when Walid entered Kufa, the Khalifa's stepbrother, he took 100,000 golden dinars from the treasury. He emptied the treasury. And he went and he purchased slave girls with them, so that his palace would be occupied with slave girls, because the Khalifa should not, the Amir should not get bored at home. Then he made a swimming pool with alcohol, khamr, and he would enter the swimming pool with the slave girls that he purchased, and he would drink and he would drink and he would drink, until one historical account says it was the time of the Fajr prayers. So he had just taken a shower in that swimming pool. He went, he wore his clothes, and he led the morning prayers. But instead of 2 rak'ah, he prayed 4. So they came to him, they said to him, Ya Amir, you prayed the morning rak'ah, but the morning prayers, but not 2, you prayed with 4. He said, it's no problem. If you like, I can make it 8. And of course, other forms of corruption, until those forms of corruption led to the assassination of the third Khalifa, Uthman ibn Affan. And for 3 days, they did not wash or bury his body. He was left in the house. They forgot Uthman the Nurayn, radiyallahu anhu, for 3 days. And the house, until the neighbors, they couldn't stand the smell of the dead body, they came and they buried him. When they assassinated Uthman, Amir al-Mu'mineen and Nahj al-Balagha states, they came running to me. And Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain were standing in front of the door, and they stampeded them, and they came and they said, Ya Ali, according to any terms, whatever terms you have, we're going to give you the Khilafah. We're going to give you the Bay'ah. Amir al-Mu'mineen, before he gave them the Bay'ah, he said those famous lines. Listen to them. He said, حتى تسترجع الأموال وإن زوجت بها النساء واشتري بها الإماء. Many people, they do not, we know that Amir al-Mu'mineen became the Khalifa, but look at the beautiful, look at the beauty of the statements of Amir al-Mu'mineen and his beautiful condition before he accepts the bay'ah. He says, all the wealth that was stolen, that was taken away from the Muslims in the time of Uthman, must be returned to Baytul Mal, or else I will not accept this Khilafah. Even if women were married with this wealth, the money has to return. And even if slaves were to be purchased with this wealth, it has to be returned. If you accept the Khilafah under this condition, give me the allegiance. They gave him the allegiance. As soon as they gave him the allegiance was annihilated, was revoked by some individuals, by some companions. A person comes to one of the khulafa of Bani Umayyah. He said to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, there is a woman, a mother who killed her children. What do you have to say about her? The Khalifa said, a mother killed her own children? He said, yeah. He said, I would say, La'anaha Allah. May Allah curse her. Which mother would kill her own children? Then he said to him, but Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, al-Mu'mineen Aisha, she resulted in the death of 30,000 people of her children. She is the mother of the Mu'mineen. And she resulted in the death and the most brutal and deadliest battle in Islamic history. She was the first person to seek the vengeance of Uthman from Amir al-Mu'mineen. Say that he killed him. Ali killed Uthman. Talha and Zubair on one side, alongside Aisha and Amir al-Mu'mineen on another. The Battle of Jamal. A person comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen in the Battle of Jamal. And once again, Karbala is in the making. A person comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, on one side I see Talha, on one side I see Zubair, on one side I see Aisha, on one side I see you, I see Ammar, I see Miqdad, and I am confused. Where is haqq? Where is justice? Where should I stand? Amir al-Mu'mineen didn't tell him that, follow me, don't you know that I am with haqq? Amir al-Mu'mineen says to him, i'rif al-haqq. Go and know what justice is. Go and know what haqq is. تعرف من اتبعه. You will know who's on the side of haqq. What was going on the other side? Historical accounts tell us that Talha and Zubair in the time of Dhuhr and Asr, Talha would want to lead the namaz, Zubair would push him, say it's I have to lead. Who's telling you to lead? Zubair would go and lead, Talha would push him, say I have to lead. Until it was almost time for Maghrib. From Dhuhr until Maghrib, the whole community standing for namaz, Talha and Zubair are fighting on who's going to lead the prayers. Until they went to Aisha. They said, Ya al-Mu'mineen, we have a big problem. Today we still haven't prayed Dhuhr and Asr because Talha and Zubair both want to lead the prayers and they keep fighting one another. So she said, then allow Abdullah, the son of Zubair, to lead the prayers. And Abdullah, the son of Zubair, he wants to lead the prayers. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, A'rif al-haqq. Go and look at haqq. Go and see the side of Ali, then go and see the other side. You will know where haqq is. I'm not going to tell you who is on the side of haqq. I will let you to be the judge. And then the battle of Nahrawan and the battle of Siffin. And Karbala was yet in the making. Imagine what Muawiyah did. A man comes to Muawiyah. Muawiyah is sitting as the Khalifa of the Muslimin. The Khalifa. A man comes in and he's about to sit down. He comes, he sits right next to Muawiyah. Muawiyah says to him, وَيْحَكَ مَنْ أَنْتَ تَصَدَّرْتَ مَجْلِسِي. He said to him, who are you? You came and you sat right in the front of the gathering? Who are you? Who do you think you are? You just don't come in and sit in the prestigious position here. هَلْ لَكَ مَنْقَبَةٌ. Do you have any special characteristics? Are you a special individual that you came and you chose an important seat? He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, liya manqabah. He said, yes, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I have important virtues. He said to him, Hatiha wa illa qata'ta unuqak. He said, tell me what it is or else I'll behead you. He said to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I am a speaker. I give the Friday sermon. And since the time of your Khilafah until now, I have not gone on top of the mimbar. And I have not came down from the mimbar unless I have cursed Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussein. This was his virtue. This was his manqabah. Muawiyah said, Barakallahu feek. Indeed, this is a good virtue. Sit down. This was the Muslim Ummah. And this is what allowed Yazid ibn Muawiyah to take the seat of the Khilafah. And indeed, the day of Ashura was in the making for years before the year 680, before the year 61 after Hijrah, until the time reached the point where Imam Hussain had to stand up to defend and to rejuvenate the religion of his grandfather Rasulullah. He went to his grandfather's grave in Medina. He stood in front of his grandfather's grave to say his goodbyes to his beloved grandfather Rasulullah. ضمني يا جداه في هذا الضريح علني يا جداه من بلوى زماني أستريح فعلى من جانب القبر بكاء ونحيب افتجاع ونياح يا حبيبي يا Hussain. He said to him, "Oh my grandfather, Ya Rasulullah, keep me in this grave. Stop my miseries. Embrace me, Ya Rasulullah." And he cried until he fell asleep next to the grave of his grandfather Rasulullah. His grandfather came to him, to his dream, saying to him, "Bunayya Hussain, oh my grandson Hussain, you have to give your sacrifice in the land of Karbala. وكأني بلئيم الأصل شمرا قد علا صدرك الطاهر يحز الودجين." And I can even see Shimr the Mal'oon sitting on your chest, beheading your head from your body. Imam Hussain, the next day, he went to Salama. He said to her, Salama, I am here to say my goodbyes. Salama, she came to him, she said, "Oh son Hussain, allow me to hug you. Allow me to smell you for the last time, because I know this time when you leave, Ya Aba Abdullah, there is no return." Then he said to her, Ya Salama, I want you to be the guardian and the parent of one of my daughters. She said to her, which one? He said to her, Fatima al-Alila. Imam Hussain had an ill daughter by the name of Fatima who could not walk. Imam Hussain carried her and he put her in the chamber of Salama. He said his goodbyes to Salama, to his daughter Fatima. And when he was walking out of the house of Salama, he heard the cries of Fatima saying, Ya Abata, Ya Aba Abdullah. He stopped. He said, Fatima, what is it that you want? She said to him, Father, why don't you take me as a servant on this journey? I don't want to be alone in Medina without my father, without my brother Ali al-Akbar, without my brother Zain al-Abideen. Imam Hussain said to her, we are going on a long journey, you have to stay with your grandmother Al-Mu'mineen, Salama. Then she said to him, Ya Abata, Ya Aba Abdullah, now that you're taking everyone, at least leave the 6-month-old infant Ali al-Asghar with me, I will take care of him. Allahu Akbar. Imam Hussain said to her, oh my daughter Fatima, even this infant Ali al-Asghar, he has a role in this journey. Allahu Akbar. This was the day of the departure of Hussain from Medina. But let us recall the day of the return of the camp of Hussain once again to Medina. Imam Zain al-Abideen was approaching the city of Medina, and then a man came to him. He said to him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, are you from the camp of Hussain? He said to him, indeed I am from the camp of Hussain. He said to him, then where is Hussain? Where is his son Ali al-Akbar? Where is his brother Abbas? He said to him, اذهب وانعي والدي الحسين. Go and tell the people of Medina that Hussain has been killed. The man entered the city of Medina. Many people were waiting to hear the news of Hussain. He came to the gates of the city of Medina. Ya ahla Yathrib la muqama lakum biha. Ya ahla Yathrib la muqama lakum biha. Oh, the people of Medina, you would not be able to handle this news. They gathered. They said, Mal khabar? He said, Al khabaru anda qabri Rasulullah. The news I will inform you next to the grave of Rasulullah. He went next to the grave of his grandfather Rasulullah. The people of Medina were gathered. He then said, Ya ahla Yathrib, لا مقام لكم بها قتل الحسين فأدمعي مدراره. Oh, Hussain has been murdered. Hussain has been killed and slain. Let us shed tears for Hussain. They said to him, where is Hussain? He said, الجسم منه بكربلاء. His body is in Karbala. Where is his head? والرأس فوق الرمح يدار. And his head is on top of the spears. Allahu Akbar. When they heard this news, everyone began to cry. But there was a woman sitting in her home waiting for her sons to arrive back. She came running out of her home barefoot. She had gone towards the house of Bani Hashim. She knocked the door. They said to her, who are you? She said, I am here to see Zainab, al-Aqila Zainab. They said to her, who are you? As-Sayyida Zainab now cannot accept visitors. She's not in a good situation. She said to them, tell her, I am your servant, Al-Baneen, the mother of Abbas. As-Sayyida Zainab stood to greet this noble woman, the mother of Abbas. And Al-Baneen came into the house. She began to say, wa waladahu wa Husayna. As-Sayyida Zainab would respond to her, wa akhahu wa Abbasa. Then As-Sayyida Al-Baneen asked Sayyida Zainab, she said, Ya bint Amir al-Mu'mineen, Did my sons defend the grandson of Rasulullah? Did they defend the son of Fatima? Because I wouldn't know what to tell their mother Fatima to Zahra if she asked me tomorrow in the day of judgment. Let us all raise our hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the time of hajat, it is the time of dua. Let us go to our Mawla, Sayyidina wa Moulana, Abi Abdullah al-Hussain, to his shrine to Karbala, to go to him with our hajat, sincerely, with a broken heart, with our tears, and we say to him, Ya Sayyidina wa Moulana, إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله. إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. All of us all together loudly. يا وجيها اشفع لنا. Men and women all together. يا وجيها عند الله يا وجيها عند الله نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم 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 الأعز الأجل الأكرم 10 times with the loudest of your voices. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم. اللهم إنا نسألك بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين والتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. Oh Allah, every man, every woman present in this majlis with a haja, give them their hajat. Oh Allah, every man and woman in this majlis with an illness, give them cure. Oh Allah, every man and woman present in this majlis with a sin, forgive all our sins. Oh Allah, every man and woman present in this majlis, give us all the visitation of Hussain, the ziyarah of Hussain, the shafa'ah of Hussain. Oh Allah, accept our aza for Sayyidina al-Imam al-Hussain. Hasten the reappearance of his grandson, Sahibul Asri wal Zaman. Oh Allah, our parents, our grandparents, our relatives, the mu'mineen and mu'minat who have passed away from this gathering, shower onto their graves from your mercy and compassion. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء نهدي جميعا ثواب سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.